Guten Morgen, everybody. Actually, it's in the afternoon when I'm recording this, but I had some things to do at school today, so I got to go to school into the classroom and got some things organized, and then I came home and had lunch and spent some time with Scooty, who is here. Hey, Scoot. Oh, he's so snuggly. I think I say that about every time, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, so here we are, ready for today's Fablehaven. Can you handle it? Can you even handle it? Oh my goodness. So much going on. That night, Kendra reclined in bed scanning a journal, stealing glances at Seth, who was leafing through pages of his own at a brisk pace. So I'm on page 285, by the way, if you are following along. Pausing occasionally to study a passage, she tried to focus on her reading, but the sight of him hunched forward intently kept drawing her gaze. "I can see you watching me," he said without looking up. "I should start charging admission." "Find anything interesting?" she asked. "Nothing useful," he said. "Me neither," Kendra said. "Nothing new." "I'm surprised you ever find anything. You go through the book so slowly," he said. "Who knows how much time we have?" Oh, sorry. I skipped a spot. I'm sorry. "I'm surprised you don't miss everything flipping through pages so fast," she said. "Who knows how much time we have?" Seth said, closing the journal and rubbing his eyes. "Nobody found anything today." "I told Grandpa he should let me talk to Lena," Kendra said. "She wouldn't even make an appearance for him." "We could sneak down to the pond tonight," Seth offered. "Are you insane?" she asked. "I'm kidding," said Seth. "Mostly. Besides, Hugo and Mendigo would never let us out of the yard. I was relieved to hear Grandpa saw Doran at the pond. I was sure Newell would have caught him." Kendra closed her book. Grandpa got good info from some of the satyrs and dryads. "Just confirming what we already know," Seth argued. "Newsflash, the plague is everywhere." Warren made it back safe from Kurosak's domain, with no new info except that a fog giant is standing guard. He didn't even reach the tar pit. Kendra reached for the bedside lamp. "Should I turn off the light?" "Might as well. I think my eyes will melt if I try to read anymore," Seth said. She clicked off the light. "I don't get why you were so upset about being caught reading," she said. "It was just embarrassing. What if people found out?" Seth asked. "They'd just think you were normal and smart," said Kendra. "Most people worth knowing enjoy reading. Everyone in our family does it. Grandma taught college." "Yeah, well, I was making fun of you before, so now I look like a hypocrite." Kendra smiled. "No, you look like you finally wised up." He gave no reply. Kendra stared at the ceiling, assuming the conversation had ended. "What if we can't fix this problem?" Seth asked as she was starting to fade off to sleep. "I know we've survived some scary situations in the past, but this plague feels different. Nobody has ever seen anything like it. We don't really know what it is, let alone how to repair the damage. And it spreads so fast, turning friends into enemies. You should have seen Newell." "I'm worried too," Kendra said. "All I know for sure is that Coulter was right. Even when you try your best to prepare, these preserves can be deadly." "I'm sorry some of the people at Lost Mesa didn't make it," Seth said softly. "I'm glad I wasn't there for that." "Me too," Kendra said quietly. "Good night." "Night." Dragonflies. "Kendra? Seth? Wake up. Don't be afraid." The voice boomed through the dark room as if emanating from the walls. Kendra sat up, bleary-eyed but alert. Seth was already propped up on one arm, blinking in the darkness. "Kendra? Seth? This is your grandfather," the voice said. It did sound like Grandpa, only magnified. "I'm speaking from the secret attic, where Dale, Warren, your grandmother, and I have taken refuge. The brownies have become infected." "And have turned against us. Do not open your door until we come for you in the morning. Without adults in your room, you will be totally safe from harm. We expect to pass the night without incident here as well." Seth stared at Kendra. Not quite into her eyes, she realized that he could not see her as distinctly as she could see him. Grandpa repeated the message using the same words, presumably in case they had not been awake the first time. Then he reiterated the message a third time, adding more at the end. The brownies are only permitted in the house from sunset to sunrise, so we'll evacuate in the morning. We're sorry we didn't see this coming. The brownies are an insular community, virtually never in contact with other creatures at Fablehaven. Their habitations beneath the yard enjoy many of the same protections as the house. Even so, we should have known the plague would find a way. Sorry to disturb you. Try to get some sleep. Yeah, right, Seth said, switching on the bedside lamp. Just what we needed, Kendra sighed. Evil brownies. I wonder what they look like, Seth said. Don't even consider peeking, said Kendra. I know, of course not. Seth got out of bed and jogged to the window. What are you doing? Checking something. He pulled the curtains aside. Tanu is out here, his shadow. Don't you dare open the window, Kendra commanded, rising from her bed to join her brother. He's motioning for us to stay put, Seth reported. Looking over Seth's shoulder, Kendra saw nothing on the roof. Then a fairy glided into view, glowing a deep violet shade as if illuminated by a black light. He's pointing at the fairies and signing to keep the window closed, Seth said. See, there are more fairies just beyond the roof. They're tough to make out, they're so dark. He gave Tanu a thumbs up and closed the curtain. No evil fairies have shown themselves for a while. I bet this was a trap. The brownies were supposed to flush us out so the fairies could transform us. I thought Grandpa banned fairies from the yard, Kendra said, returning to her bed. Seth started pacing. It must not have worked for some reason. I never knew Grandpa could make announcements to the whole house. They have all sorts of cool stuff in the secret attic. Too bad they don't have a door to our side. It doesn't matter, said Kendra. They'll come get us in the morning. We should try to sleep. Tomorrow will probably be hectic. Seth put his ear against the door. I can't hear anything. There are probably 10 of them patiently waiting on the far side ready to pounce, said Kendra. Brownies are shrimps, said Seth. All I'd need are some heavy boots, a pair of shin guards, and a weed whacker. The image made Kendra giggle. You said the Nipsies are much smaller than brownies, but that didn't stop them from contaminating Newell. I guess, Seth said. He opened a wardrobe and pulled out some clothes. What are you doing? Kendra asked. I want to get dressed in case we have to make a hasty getaway. Don't watch. When Seth was done, he returned to his bed. Kendra gathered her clothes, turned off the lamp, warned Seth not to peek, and changed. She climbed into bed with her shoes on. How am I supposed to sleep? Seth asked after a couple of minutes. Pretend nothing is happening, said Kendra. They're so quiet, it could just be a regular night. I'll try, he said. Good night, Seth. Don't let the brownies bite. Dragonflies. Seth slept lightly the rest of the night, often waking with a jolt, body rigid, feeling flustered and disoriented. A few times he clicked on the lamp to make sure there were no savage brownies scampering around on the floor. He even leaned down to peer under the bed, just in case. Finally, he woke to find pink light bleeding through the curtains. He got out of bed without disturbing Kendra, crossed to the window, and waited for the increased light of the sun clearing the horizon. He noticed no fairies while he waited. A few minutes after direct sunlight brightened the morning, Seth heard the attic stairs creaking. He shook Kendra awake, then went to the door. Who's there? Glad you're awake, Warren called. Don't open the door. Why not? Seth asked. It's been booby-trapped. Actually, on second thought, if you want, you can pull the door open swiftly. Just stay behind it and off to the side. Make sure Kendra is positioned out of the way as well. Okay. Kendra got out of bed and stood beside the door. Seth gripped the knob, turned it slowly, then yanked the door open, staying behind it as he lunged to the side. 3 arrows whistled into the room and thudded high against the far wall. Nicely done, Warren approved. Take a look at the stairway. Seth peeked through the doorway. Numerous wires crisscrossed the stairs high and low, horizontal and diagonal. Many of the wires ran through pulleys or hooks that had been affixed to the walls. Several crossbows had been rigged in high corners of the stairwell, most pointing at the attic door, others defending it. Down in the hall, a shotgun propped on a cleverly designed rack and was aimed up the stairs. Warren crouched against the wall a third of the way up, having already threaded past several tripwires. "Where did all the weapons come from?" Kendra asked from behind Seth. "The brownies raided an arsenal in the dungeon," Warren said. "Many additional weapons were custom made. This stairway is only the beginning. The whole house has been booby-trapped. I've never seen anything like it." "How do we get down the stairs?" Kendra asked. Warren shook his head slightly. "I was planning to disable the traps, but the cords are complicated. Some are rigged to trigger multiple traps at once. Some are decoys. I'm having a hard time making sure which wire does what. When you pulled the door open, one of the arrows grazed my ear. I didn't see it coming." "Maybe we should go out on the roof and get down that way," Seth suggested. "At least a dozen dark fairies are waiting in ambush. Going outside is not an option right now." "Didn't Grandpa ban fairies from the yard?" Kendra asked. Warren nodded. "Before he banned them, dark fairies must have hidden near the house. The register won't expel creatures who have already accessed the yard. It will only prevent new ones from entering." "Tricky," Seth said. "Last night was well planned," Warren said. "This plague is not spreading randomly. Somebody directed a deliberate, coordinated assault. Worst of all, before your grandparents awoke, the brownies got a hold of the register." "Oh no," Kendra groaned. "If the brownies altered the register, that might also explain the dark fairies." "Good point." Warren backed down a step and stretched. "Anything may be able to access the house soon. We have to clear out of here." "Is Hugo all right?" Seth asked. "The golem has been spending the nights in a safe room inside the barn. Your grandpa is doing everything he can to prevent Hugo from becoming infected. Hugo will come when we call. He should be fine in the barn until we do." "So now we have to limbo down the stairs with our lives at stake," Kendra said. "Why don't I just shove the rocking horse down the stairway?" Seth suggested. "We could all just stand back and let most of the traps go off." Warren stared at him for a moment. "That actually might work just fine," he said. "Give me a minute to backtrack. Duck away from the door in case I accidentally set off a trap or two." Seth went to the unicorn rocking horse and dragged it over near the doorway. He thought the curved runners under the horse would help it sled down the stairs quite well. In fact, under other circumstances, he might have tried riding the rocking horse down the stairs for fun. Why did fabulous ideas tend to occur to him at the wrong times? "I'm ready," Warren called. "Stay well away from the doorway. I expect it will be bombarded by a volley of quarrels, darts, and arrows." Seth positioned the rocking horse at the top of the stairs and lay down behind it. "I'll shove it with my feet, then roll out of the way," he said. Kendra stood off to the side of the door. "I'll slam the door as soon as it's through, then dive clear," she said. Seth placed the soles of his shoes on the unicorn's rump. 1, 2, 3. He gave the rocking horse a push and rolled sideways. Kendra heaved the door closed and lunged away. A gunshot rang out, blasting a hole in the door. A crossbow quarrel zinged through the hole and stuck quivering into the opposite wall. Seth heard the rocking horse clatter down the staircase, the twang of bowstrings and the overlapping beat of several other projectiles thudding against the door. "That was awesome," Seth said to Kendra. "You're psychotic," Kendra replied. "Well done," Warren called from below. "The horse tipped and missed a few of the higher chords, but the way is now fairly clear." Here's the picture of all of the mess and the traps. How'd you like to try and navigate through that? Yeah, some of you would love it. You're weird. Maybe you're psychotic like Seth. Just kidding. All right. Looking down the stairs, Seth saw several feathered shafts embedded in the floor around where Warren now stood. The rocking horse lay on its side, leaning against the bottom step, bristling with arrows and missing its horn. "Wasn't that awesome?" Seth asked. Warren cocked his head, his expression mildly embarrassed. "Sorry, Kendra. It was pretty cool." "All boys belong in insane asylums," Kendra said. "Watch your step on the way down," Warren instructed. "At least 2 of the crossbows are still armed. And see that axe tied to that rope? It will come free and swing towards you if you touch that steep cord on the left. Seth started down the stairs, ducking wires as he went, trying to avoid even the slack cords the rocking horse had already tripped. Kendra waited until he was standing beside Warren and then carefully descended the staircase. The hall at the bottom of the stairs contained a new web of wires. Although there were some crossbows, most of the traps involved curiously designed catapults meant to hurl knives and hatchets. Seth noticed a tiny piece of brown wood hanging on the wall from a golden hook. Is that part of Mendigo? Warren nodded. I've seen a few pieces of him around. He's been staying the night inside the house. The brownies dismantled him. Seth reached for the piece of the puppet. Warren put an arm on his elbow to stop him. Wait, all the pieces of Mendigo are rigged to traps. Grandma and Grandpa Sorensen appeared farther down the hall. Thank goodness you're all right, Grandma said, placing a hand on her chest. Don't come this way. Our room is a nest of nasty traps. Besides, we all need to end up downstairs eventually. You should have seen the attic stairway, Warren said. It was crammed with more death traps than any other part of the house so far. Seth pushed the rocking horse down the stairs to deliberately set off the majority. We heard the clamor and were concerned, Grandpa said. How do we proceed, Warren? It will be hard to spring all the traps on purpose, Warren said. Many are protected by counter traps. Our best bet is to make our way downstairs one at a time, individually navigating the obstacles. I'll help coach each of you through. Me first, Grandpa said. Where's Dale? Kendra asked. He was with me, Warren replied. While I helped you escape the attic, he continued along the hall, heading for the garage. He wants to make sure the vehicles are all in order. Everyone else out of the hall, Grandpa said. Grandma stepped out of sight. Seth and Kendra sat at the foot of the attic stairs. Be watchful, Stan, Warren said. Some of the tripwires are more apparent than others. Most are fairly visible, but a few are fashioned out of fishing line or thread, like the one right in front of you at the height of your knees. I see it, Grandpa said. If you accidentally brush a wire, fall flat. Most of the traps appear to be designed to strike an upright target. Warren proceeded to guide Stan down the hall. Seth and Kendra listened to Warren's instructions as Grandpa descended the stairs to the entry hall. Grandpa made an increasing number of snappy comments as impatience eroded his composure. Finally, Grandpa reached the living room and Warren began directing Grandma. While Grandma was on the stairs, there was a tremendous crash in the entry hall. Warren called out that nobody had been injured. Soon, he came and got Kendra, and Seth found himself waiting alone on the bottom step. At last, Warren returned for him. Seth did not find dodging over and under the cords in the hall very difficult, although a few were difficult to see. Upon reaching the top of the stairs to the entry hall, Seth chuckled. A grandfather clock, an armoire, a display case, a suit of armor, and a heavy rocking chair covered with spikes were all suspended from the roof of the entry hall. A china cabinet had apparently also been suspended there, but had fallen, accounting for the crash he had heard. Seth picked his way carefully down the stairs, heeding Warren's counsel on which wire to go over, which to go under, and how to position his body. The wires were more prevalent on the stairs than they had been in the hall, and a few times Seth felt like a contortionist. He was impressed that Grandma and Grandpa had been able to manage the descent. When he reached the living room, Seth was relieved to find there were fewer traps on the ground floor than had crowded the upstairs hall and stairways. Any pieces of furniture unaffiliated with traps had been reworked into tortured, unusable shapes. Some of those wires were too close together, Seth commented, wiping perspiration from his forehead. I thought you were immune to fear, Kendra teased. Magical fear, Seth clarified. I still have regular emotions. I'm no more eager than the next guy to get squished by a grandfather clock. Simultaneously ducking a thick cord and stepping over a thread-like wire, Dale entered the living room. The vehicles have been sabotaged, he said. The engine parts are all over the garage, connected to traps. What about the phone? Grandpa asked. The lines are down, Dale reported. Don't you have your cell? Kendra asked. The brownies stole it off my dresser, Grandpa said. Your grandmother and I are lucky we didn't get contaminated. There were several brownies in the room when we awoke. If Warren and Dale hadn't barged in and raised the alarm, I'm sure the little monsters would have transformed us into shadows in our sleep. Your grandpa was impressive, Warren said. He used the bedspread to hold them at bay while we retreated into the attic through the door in their bathroom closet. Grandpa waved a dismissive hand. What of the front gate, Dale? I went as far down the driveway as I dared, holding the fairies off with flash powder like you told me. The gate is shut and barred, with loads of creatures guarding it. Grandpa scowled, pounding a fist into his palm. I can't believe I lost the register. They've used it to lock us in. And they could let anybody they want into Fablehaven now, Kendra said. If they so choose, Grandpa said. I expect Vanessa had it right. The society is finished with Fablehaven. They have no idea that a second artifact may be hidden here. Nobody will be coming in. The Sphinx simply wants this preserve to self-destruct. What do we do? Seth asked. We retreat to the nearest bastion of relative safety, Grandpa said. Hopefully at the pond we can formulate a plan. We should have gotten you kids out of here when we had the chance, Grandma lamented. We wouldn't leave you even if we could, Seth assured her. We'll figure out a way to stop this plague. Grandpa frowned pensively. Can we get to the tents? I think so, Dale said. They're in the garage. What else should we bring? Grandpa asked. I have extra flash powder from the attic in my crossbow, Grandma said. Tanu's potions are all over his room attached to traps, Warren said. I'll try to retrieve some. While you're up there, see if you can grab a picture of Patton, Kendra said. We need bait for Lena. Good idea, Grandpa said. What about Mendigo? Seth asked, nodding toward the corner of the room where the lumberjack's torso dangled from the ceiling, connected to a network of wires to 2 crossbows and 2 small catapults. Too many pieces to that puzzle, Grandma said. We'll put them back together if we ever get out of this. You and the kids stay put, Grandpa told Grandma. I'm going to get some provisions from the pantry. Ruth, give Seth some walrus butter. Seth slapped his forehead. No wonder I didn't see any dark fairies in the yard out the window this morning. How come I saw them last night after sleeping for a while? It can be hard to predict at what hour of the night the milk will stop working, Grandma said. The only sure way to keep it functioning is to stay awake. We keep a stash of walrus butter in the attic, so we already had our dose for the day. Seth dipped a finger in the butter she offered and tasted it. I prefer the milk, he said. Warren patted Seth on the arm. When opening the fridge might mean an arrow in your throat, stick with the butter, he said. Let's split up and gather what we need, Grandpa said. This house is no longer a reliable shelter. I don't want to remain here a minute longer than necessary. Seth squatted on the floor beside Kendra while Warren, Dale, and Grandpa departed. Grandma leaned against the wall, bristling with spikes and blades and barbs. None of the furniture was fit to hold them. And that's all for today. We will start chapter 16 next time, okay? All right. It's supposed to be some wild and crazy weather for the next couple of days. So anytime you see some sunshine, go out there and get some sunshine. You guys, I hope you are having a great day, and I will see you next time. Bye.